Angela described the relationship between fairy tales and their tellers in terms of recipes. Is there a definitive recipe for potato soup? Think in terms of the domestic arts. This is how I make potato soup. Fairy tales can be as straightforward as potato soup, but they can also be complex. People tend to think of fairy tales as simple tales that originated in nurseries and taverns, told by old Mother Goose figures to an enraptured audience. But fairy tales have a long history in literature too. The term fairy tale comes to us through Mary Catherine d'Aulnoy, a 17th century aristocrat and author. Her volume of tales, Le Conte de Fées, gives us fairy tale, and her tales were filled with fairies, passionate, conniving, powerful fairies. Some even rode in on fiery camels. Today, fairy tales don't necessarily include fairies. It is worth remembering that fairies weren't always sweetness and tiny wings. D'Aulnoy led the vogue for fairy tales in France. These were tales that drew upon older tales, including those already published by Straparola and Bazille in Venice and Naples respectively. But the tales were remade for a sophisticated French audience. The art of retelling is centuries old. The 17th century French authors even referenced fairy tales from their peers. D'Aulnoy, for instance, mentions Charles Perrault's Donkey Skin and Sleeping Beauty, which had just been published. In her tale, The White Cat. Fairy tale involves taking the bones of the tale and, forgive me for continuing the soup analogy, making a fresh soup. The structure of the tale, the characters, the setting, these can all be retold. The key to a great retelling is not to simply repeat the tale. For a start, there are already so many retellings of these tales. The key is to understand the tale's history and to draw freely from that history as you need. But be warned, because fairy tales are so often retold, retellings can get a little bland. And some tales are retold far more than others. Some tales languish and are ripe for a good retelling. Authors rework fairy tales, making something quite new. Again, this involves having a good understanding of the history of fairy tale, but also how it's been retold today. Fairy tales have fashions. Haven't you noticed all the princesses in trousers wielding swords of late? Reworking a tale involves taking that tale somewhere it hasn't been before, finding the seed within it that you can grow in a new and unexpected way. And then are the fractured fairy tales. These break the old norms of fairy tale apart. In breaking the fairy tale, though, these tales are really addressing the problems of old tales, confronting those problems head on, breaking them down and resetting them to create something that speaks to the current generation of fairy tale audience. These are actually quite politically and socially violent tales. Basically, the key to telling tales today is to not just stop at the Brothers Grimm or Disney. To write fairy tales today, it's worth knowing your own fairy tale heritage.